All right. Let's see. Okay. All right, folks. Sorry for the late start. We've been having internet problems again. Now, I don't know what's going on at this point. Initially we thought it was a DDoS that one night, but we're still having the same problem. Like, randomly, at random points of the day, it just gets really slow and we can't stream and whatever. But we're going off cellular hotspot connection, says it's good. So, the Matrix won't stop us, will they not? All right, big thing tonight. We got to react to the Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate interview. Maybe the biggest interview of this entire calendar year. Stay tuned. Gonna be a great show. And folks, we are live tonight from the great state of Florida. It is July 11th, the year of our Lord 2023. Welcome everyone to the Vince Dao Show. I am your host, Vince Dao. And before we begin, as usual, be sure to leave a like on the stream right now. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you got questions, comments, anything from me, anything you want read as we go through the interview tonight, we got a long show ahead of us. So strap in, folks. Buckle up, grab your popcorn. Feel free to send it in via the super chats. I'll check the super chats regularly throughout the night. In fact, tonight, since we are going to be reacting to something, I'll use the little thing on the screen where your super chat will pop up on the screen, and then we'll read it at an appropriate time. So I'll do that whole thing. But yeah, folks, as usual, that's the normal deal. But yeah, all right, tonight we got a big interview to react to. Today, Tucker Carlson finally released his interview with Andrew Tate. It's about 2.5 hours, and I sat down. I'm watching most of this so far. And I have to say, legitimately, I'll give you my first thoughts on it from what I've seen before we get into the full reaction tonight, is, I think Andrew Tate, obviously, he likes to have a lot of fun, and there's a lot of dumb, quote unquote, not dumb entirely, but you know what I mean, like less self-serious streams out there, Aiden Ross, all those characters, but they sit him down here with a legitimately other intelligent person, and I actually found this entire thing to be very insightful. Like I said, I think it's one of the best interviews of this year, and legitimately, I will say this as well. I think that I personally, I honestly like him more in this setting than the setting of internet clowns, if you get what I'm saying, right? I think you set him down here, actually have him talk about ideas and concepts and all that stuff. I think it's very insightful. I think it's very intelligent. So, as you guys know, we've been covering the Andrew Tate saga on this channel for a while. I mean, at this point, I'm not here to litigate it over and over again with the same people. Either you get it or you don't, right? Either you understand the systematic cancellation that has happened to him by Western powers and why that's important, why that matters to you as a conservative, a right-winger, a religious person, a Christian, right? Or you don't, or you just don't get it. I'm not here to relitigate that, but I am here to get into the full interview tonight. So buckle up, folks. It's going to be really fun. And like I said, I've watched most of this so far, not all of it, most of it. Like I said, it's going to be a really good interview. I'm just going to react, give you my thoughts periodically as we sit down and watch this. I'll read the super chats. And I'm not sure if we're going to react to the full thing on this. I might cut it off at about like 2 hours and then go to a members block. Or if it's still going really well by the later hours of the night, then we can just do the whole thing free. We'll figure that out. For now, let's just sit down and get into this, okay? This is Tucker Carlson, the biggest collab of the year with Andrew Tate, ladies and gentlemen. Big stuff. All right, let's get into it. I mean, I don't have much else to say, so here we go.
Being a 6th grade boy in the United States right now, what are you hearing at school? What are they telling you on the internet? Well, they're telling you to stop being yourself. Sit still. Stop joking. Suppress your aggression. Share your feelings. Obey.
True.
Female qualities are virtuous. Masculine qualities are oppressive.
Yep.
That's the message. In case it wasn't clear
the
enough,
education
schools around the country
favors
have removed urinals
the
from
female
boys'
brain.
bathrooms. The male body itself is shameful. Sit down when you pee like a good little girl. Views like this are often called feminism or woke politics, but in fact they amount to mass conversion therapy, an attempt to change the fundamental nature of people. Nothing like this has ever been attempted at scale. It's one of the most grotesque and destructive experiments in human history. What would it be like to find yourself the subject of that experiment as a boy trying to become a man during...
All right, we're going to skip this intro for time. I mean, not that it's bad or anything, but like I said, we got a long stream ahead of us. So you get the idea. Yes, the school system against men specifically, it's particularly rigged against the male brain, specifically because men more so, they're not supposed to just sit down, especially young boys, testosterone. We're not just supposed to sit down and, be inactive and just listen to lecture all day. We're supposed to explore. We're supposed to build. We're supposed to learn. And all the school system basically teaches is, sit down, replicate this process, replicate that, know this is a word for the test, whatever. And that's part of the reason why the school system leaves so many boys behind, because boys are not meant to learn like that. It actually favors women more so to just learn how to replicate and follow a process, to kind of submit to a system, right? Whereas men, especially the higher testosterone men, they say it's ADHD or whatever, right? You say you're problematic. You're not problematic. You're just a normal boy and that's just not how you're supposed to learn. We get that. I mean, that's part of a reason why I think they don't like the influence Andrew Tate has with these sixth graders and stuff, because it's not just people our age. It's very young, so we get it. All right, let's get into the interview.
As so much of his content has been. The video is long, but if you can, take the time to watch it.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
Make up your own mind about Andrew Tate. Here it is. So what are you charged with?
That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
It looks that way. And it's very interesting because the girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying that we're not victims of anything and this isn't true. But the state believes it's true, and the state thinks that I, as a 35-year-old man, woke up. I was already extremely financially successful. I was already a father. I was already very well known. I had no financial motivation. I have no criminal record. It's not my personality profile, but I woke up at the age of 35 and decided to make girls do TikTok to enrich myself with the pennies that I would earn from TikTok views.
Reminds me a lot of a certain former president who they just go through his whole life and they're like, let's try to find a crime. Oh, it worked? Kind of? Okay, go for it.
So in the United States, I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking, because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they've found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
How do you force someone to do TikTok videos?
I guess the prosecutor is going to have to explain that, isn't he? It's a very interesting scenario I'm in, and I'm inside of Romania, so I have to show a degree of respect to the Romanian judicial system, and I have to show a degree of respect to the situation I'm in. But the overall charge is that there's an organized criminal group. There's a group of us. I'm the head of it. My brother is below me, and we use the lover boy method to convince women to do TikTok videos to make money so that we can steal the TikTok money.
So there's just to be clear, you are not accused of pandering, of pimping, of forcing women to have sex with anybody.
No, not forcing them to have sex, not restraining their movement, not stopping them from living a full life, but the fact that we are somehow convincing them to have TikTok. Very interesting. I don't think...
But there's no actual... I'm asking you this because I do think it's a widespread belief that you were accused of pimping.
Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with any of this case. Absolutely nothing. And it's kind of scary because the crime in itself of human trafficking is a unique one, because they can ignore the statement of the victim. So the girls have come forward and said, this is insane. You've just picked us because we're near Andrew and we're his friends.
Yeah, and we talked about that a couple months ago. There was women who were named in the case files who were literally saying, we like the Tates, so we're not victims of human trafficking. What is this? And the Romanian government would not remove them. I don't know how the justice system works in that country. It's obviously totally backwards, but that's... Like, it's so obvious at this point to me what's going on here. Maybe initially when you saw it, you're like, yeah, I suspect, but we'll hear at this point, I think it should be obvious to everyone how corrupt and shady this trial is, but who knows? I mean...
But the whole idea of the crime is they can say that she's under...
People are going to believe what people are going to believe,
She's under duress. So you can ignore her statement. State says she's a victim, regardless of the fact that she says she's not a victim. So It's very interesting because the difference between sex and rape is consent, right?
Right.
But they remove all of that. They're like, nope, you're a victim. No matter what you say, we're deciding you're a victim. And they've chosen them. And of course, these girls do nothing pornographic. They've never had sex with anyone, nothing to do with that. So they've picked TikTok. So it's scary. Imagine you're a full-grown man anywhere in the world today. They can find two girls who have TikTok on their phone, which is every single female on the planet, and they can accuse you of forcing them to take the TikTok money. And even if the girls say they didn't do that, this isn't true, then you're still a human trafficker.
But force, what does that consist of? Forcing someone to do something? Are they accusing you of using violence or?
No, they're accusing me, and this thing, they're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
And by the way, these charges presumably are public, so...
They're public, and this is extremely serious, but if you actually analyze the overall case against me, they're saying that Andrew and his brother, by being nice men, convinced girls to have TikTok accounts and then take the money. And it's very interesting because inside of the entire case file, there's not a single financial transaction to us for money.
What are the penalties?
So what's the argument? What's the case? It just sounds like nonsense to me. I'm no legal expert, but that sounds like nonsense. What benefit do they get out of these girls allegedly making TikToks because they forced them to, even though the girls are saying they didn't force us to do this? I mean, what did they? I don't understand that at all.
Extremely severe.
It doesn't make any sense.
In jail, and I've already served. Coming up now.
Oh, so my grandma would never download TikTok. True.
They can only hold
you are essentially incarcerated right now.
Absolutely, I'm on house arrest, and that counts as jail. You can only be held 6 months without charge. I was initially picked up, thrown in a cell without charge. And I think the intention of the entire investigation at that point was to find the crime because they had very, very weak evidence. They contacted 2,000 people who know me or knew me. They tried very hard to convince some female somewhere to come forward and say something bad about me. The media machine, which works hands in hands with the justice machine, as you know very well, did exactly that. In fact, they offered bribes effectively. They'd call up ex-girlfriends and say, if you have anything bad to say about Andrew, we can pay you $50,000 for the story. And they tried very hard. They didn't find any evidence of anything. They then released me on house arrest, and then 2 days before the legal limit in which they had to drop everything, they charged me with whatever they had from the beginning, which is very little. And now we have to wait for the Romanian judicial system to analyze the file and, God willing, throw it away.
How long did you spend in jail?
I was in jail for 92 days in a Romanian jail cell.
What was that like?
It was certainly an interesting experience. I won't lie and say brutal. It was easy. It was certainly very difficult. The uncertainty of it. It's a very uncertain situation to be picked up on just before New Year's Eve and thrown in a cell without charge.
Game Ended Memer says, I am Romanian, and it looks like they were scraping the bottom of the barrel to get something. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. They wanted to get something. And I think this is what people need to understand is, very often when someone is accused of a crime, everyone's like, the natural inclination of the public eye very often is to assume guilt, right? But, maybe this is me being demoralized or blackpilled or brainwashed or whatever. But I genuinely believe that if you reach a certain level of influence where you're threatening the system, be that Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, Worldwide, Julian Assange, whoever it is, it's not a matter of, justice or whatever. They can't indict you with no evidence. No, actually, they can do all of those things. I genuinely believe that. I think you reach a certain level to which you threaten the system so much, it no longer becomes about evidence or justice or whatever. So maybe something, when you're starting off, when you're on like my level, for instance, I don't believe I'm at the point, at least I hope. I'm not at the point yet where, that I'm in that position. But I do genuinely sometimes mentally prepare for that. Like, I mentally prepare sometimes for, one day, maybe not now, but one day you may be in a position where they're going to try to send you in jail or do worse than that. And you need to be mentally prepared for that. And I genuinely believe that anyone who reaches a certain level of influence, that will happen. And people can think that's delusional or whatever, but I certainly believe it. So
and I'm
thank you for the comment.
Prison guards and different prisoners, how long am I going to be
Again, if you guys
here?
do want to super chat the show, feel free to. I'll read them in between these.
I was like, have you been charged? He goes, yeah, but I haven't gone to court yet. Like, everyone's been there for years. I thought I was going to be there for years. And it certainly takes a mental toll on you. And I think jail is a different experience when you know you're innocent. There was a guy in there for murder. He's like, yeah, I murdered someone, I'm in jail. You can your soul and your mind can accept the punishment for a crime. But when you've actually done nothing wrong, I think jail is a lot harder.
Did you know why you were there?
I could imagine.
Not initially. So for about the first 2 weeks, I never actually got told in English what I was accused of because I was arrested on December 29th. There's New Year's.
What were the circumstances
Could you imagine that? 2 weeks and you don't even know why you're in jail.
of that?
Imagine that.
Yeah, December 29th, 5 a.m., the armed guards ran in this house. They spent all day searching the entire house. They were very interested in electronics, as most federal agencies are. And then they took me that evening and said, we're going to go and put you in jail for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, you see a judge, and the judge will decide if you stay in jail. And the judge decided I should stay in jail.
What did you do? I mean, who'd you call?
I had a lawyer, and my lawyer came and he said, we need to analyze the case file. We need to see what they have against you. You're being accused of human trafficking. I was like, human trafficking? That's insane. Who? When? What? I went to jail, and then I was given all this paper in Romanian. I don't speak Romanian, although I live here. And then I was waiting for the translation. So I think it's about 2 weeks before I finally got the papers in English to understand why I was in a jail cell. And then I really understood how insane the accusations were.
What is human trafficking?
Yeah, so the overall, my understanding of it, they're saying that human trafficking is when you convince a woman to do something she doesn't want to do for financial gain. And there's different methods you can do that. You can do that through force, and you can also do that through emotional coercion.
I think most people, just speaking from the American perspective, most people believe that human trafficking is effectively slavery, selling human beings.
That's what I believe as well. Absolutely. Right. And this is the thing that's so interesting. When you finally end up the enemy of the matrix, and they use the legal system as a weapon to punish you for having an opinion, you realize how subjective the law is.
I just said that. Yeah.
Right? Because it can be a weapon. When you have something subjective, you can just pick and choose. So if they sit and say, human trafficking is a woman doing something for financial gain against her will via emotional coercion. Well, he knows these two girls, they have TikTok accounts.
Emotional coercion?
Convincing her. That's what I'm accused of, because they have no proof of me doing anything wrong. So they said, he's convinced these girls to do TikTok for money. The girls have said this is not true, and the state is denying their statement, saying, no, you're brainwashed, it is true.
It's nuts, the standards too that they use these days to argue that. Did you guys see, I believe it was Jonah Hill's ex? Jonah Hill's ex accused him of being emotionally abusive, basically because he said, these are my boundaries. I don't want you to be, talking to other guys or having inappropriate male friendships or, posting, slutty pictures on social media. All very reasonable things if you were in a serious relationship that a boyfriend would ask of you. And she went up back and said, that's all emotional abuse, right? And you have all these feminists and stuff siding with her. How dare you set a boundary? Hey, if you're going to be in a relationship with me, this is what I want. If you are a man and you ever want your girlfriend or a female employee or whatever, if you ever ask them to do anything or you ever want them to do anything and you ever say, well, if you don't want to do this, then we have to cut off this relationship. Apparently that is emotionally abusive. They say this all the time. And even now the girls are saying it wasn't, but they're saying,
the state,
no, it was. You just don't get it.
It's crazy. The women. So how is the state?
She wants to be the next Amber Heard, exactly.
By the same definition.
Sorry to keep pausing, but King Kairos says, would you say that the main motivation for all of this is here we have a rich and famous person, let's suck them dry of all their money and assets? True, exactly. In the same way, I don't think they're ever really going to put Trump in jail. It's more so a matter of he's running for president, 2024 election, let's harass him, let's try to screw with his campaign.
Absolutely. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that you can sit someone down and tell them they're a victim when they say they're not a victim.
You're a victim of being coerced, and we're going to try to coerce you into conceding you're coerced.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting scenario. And
okay.
Yeah. And it's a very interesting scenario. And it's up until this point, no judge has looked at the evidence of the case. So up until this point, I've been to court a bunch of times. But the only reason I was in court was to discuss my preventative detention. So under Romanian law, if you being free can impede the investigation, you should stay in jail.
Which is crazy.
So the judge agreed that, yeah, maybe if he's free, he can damage this investigation because they're trying very hard to get something on this guy. So I've done a bunch of jail time. And now it just begins. The judge is going to look at the case. And like I said, God willing, I still have enough faith in the Romanian judicial system that she's going to look at this and go, this is not a crime.
You're aware of the media coverage of this, however. So you're in jail for 90 days or more, and the rest of the world is talking about you. Do you know what they're saying?
They're saying very heinous things, and I would hate to come across as a conspiracy theorist, Tucker, but I kind of have a feeling that this might be something to do with my influence and an attempt to slander my name. Perhaps I'm crazy.
Yeah,
but
what
the
a
fact
crazy
that it shows
idea,
such a heinous crime, and they reported it so heavily, and they won't shut up and keep repeating basically a slander attack day after day after day. Also considering the fact that other people who genuinely commit heinous crimes have far more favorable press coverage. I don't want you to think I'm a conspiracy theorist. Please, Tucker, I would hate for you to come here and call me crazy. Yeah. But something very strange about it, and I think
What, when Jeffrey Epstein's friends call you immoral?
The goal of it is certainly to slander my name, and I like to see it as a litmus test. I like to see it as an intelligence test. Anybody who wakes up and looks at me and goes, he's a human trafficker because of TikTok, they're fully gone.
So, but from the way, just
by the way, I think that's why they need human trafficking as the charge, right? Because, you know, all the stuff, Andrew Tate's lifestyle, you would think the thing you would find, is a financial crime, right? Tax evasion, you know, something like that. But the thing is, that doesn't really damage the reputation, right? Because who cares about tax evasion? When I look at, they say Donald Trump evaded taxes, I'm like, based, what a king. I like him more for that. Wow, he got out of a very crooked and corrupt system and he outsmarted it. What a Chad, what a king, right? They need something like evil, like human trafficking, you know, because otherwise they wouldn't have they wouldn't be able to damage the character, which is what it's about. Sure. Muddy the waters.
Andrew Tate, right? Kind of an outlaw.
Yep.
Lives in some palace in Romania, wherever that is.
Yep.
And Romania sounds like the kind of place where human trafficking is like the main industry.
A lot of it happens here. That's what's so crazy about it, right?
Yeah,
what's so crazy is if they really want to find a
Romania.
human trafficker, I think they could probably do it quite easily.
Yeah, there's real ones.
But they managed to get me.
That's certainly the perception. But it's one of those charges that kind of sells itself.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't matter if you're found guilty or not, right? You're a human trafficker forever. And but I do think that public consciousness is changing. I think with things like there's been some very large court cases recently involving some very famous people in which women were caught lying, trying to slander men's names for rape and these kinds of things.
Yep, Amber Heard.
And I don't think people believe it anymore. But that scares me to a degree because I think that the typical weapon, the standardized playbook is now failing, and I don't know what the new playbook's going to be. It's almost like better the devil you know. That you're too famous, you're too successful, we don't like you. Call him a rapist or a human trafficker, put him all over the news, slander his name, try and wreck his life. Now that nobody believes it, what's the next move? What are they going to try next?
Wouldn't it just have been easier to commit like a massive financial?
Uh-oh, guys. Stream dropping. Oh, no. Okay, guys, if it lags out for you, just refresh. Okay, just refresh if it starts buffering, all right? Like I said, we are going off my cellular hotspot tonight because the Wi-Fi decided it wanted to have a stroke earlier. So hopefully we're still good. Let me know if it's like totally screwed up, but hopefully we're still good.
Crime and
JD for $2. Let me play the sound effect. Wait, hold up. Actually, just give me a second. I'll get it in a second. Streamlabs has to update.
Fraud people of billions come up with like a fake cryptocurrency, call it like, I don't know, FTX, or just give a name to it.
Yep, something random.
You know, steal billions and get your parents involved and buy a bunch of real estate in the Bahamas, and then like you'd be sort of a hero, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I would have certainly made a lot more money than TikTok because I don't think TikTok even pays you for views. And if it certainly does, I never got a single transaction from it. So it's a very interesting scenario. But if I was accused of a financial crime, my name would not be slandered. So
no, of course. Well, of course not. You have the presumption of innocence. So just back to the jail thing. So you're in with your brother.
At the beginning, I was not, but towards the end, I was, yeah.
What did you do all day?
It's a good question. I looked at the wall, stared at the wall, smoked cigarettes, lots of push-ups, read the Quran.
You smoked cigarettes, did push-ups, and read the Quran.
Basically, yes.
Hold on. Okay, JD for $2 says, different views on people of books' influence than the MS. Thank you for the 2. I don't know if I can talk about that on YouTube, JD. I don't know if what you're trying to get at there. Okay, but thank you for the $2.
And certainly had some introspective moments. Tried my best to get out. Tried my best to via my small phone calls understand what's happening in the outside world. Tried to make sure that the people I love and care about are taken care of because I'm the man of my family and I'm also the man of quite a large, I wouldn't say empire, but life. And there's a whole lot of people who rely on me. You know, you have staff and families, you have children and families.
Feeling, yeah.
So when you're plucked from that, it's kind of strange. You're in jail and you're concerned for yourself, but your primary concerns are also all your duties as a man. I have duties as a man. I don't want children to starve.
You've got a whole tribe.
I've got people to pay. So it was very, very frustrating, constantly trying to make sure everybody else was okay and feeling helpless. That's what hurt me the most. I was trying to make sure everybody I love and care about was fine. and I wasn't as powerful as I should have been. And that was very upsetting. And especially if they're going to keep me there for years, I was having serious concerns about how I can feed the people I love.
Did you ever come to the edge at all?
No. I certainly had some days I was less happy than others, but I made sure that my mindset was built in a way that I could always be doing something constructive. And also, I think you get what you give in life. And if I ever felt particularly sad on a day, I would try very hard to make other people happy, because if I made other people smile, I'd feel better. So even the dinner ladies or the prison guards, I'd try very hard just to make people smile. I know it sounds silly. Some of the prison guards were more open than others, but there was a couple prison guards who were ice cold.
Thank you for the two, Sheeny Beanie. It's true. Don't forget Epstein's list.
Like, hey, bro, your hair looks amazing. And you just stare at me like he wants, shut up. But I just try my best to cheer people up, to cheer myself up. And as a man, all you can do is just find the resolve to continue doing the best you can in the current circumstance. So,
what were the other prisoners like?
I don't want to insult Romania in any way, and I love this country and I chose to live here. But if I had to describe it for the people, for an American audience to understand, I don't think Romania and a lot of these countries have the same kind of mental health setup or the mental health support that a lot of Western nations have. So you end up in jail. Ooh. So I think there was a lot of mental health problems inside the jail. So it was very similar. It wasn't just a jail. There was also a lot of mental health problems in there, which adds a new complexity and a new dimension to the suffering. Because there's just random screaming and there's suicide and it's certainly not a very nice place to be.
Oh, so it's
sounds
horrifying.
miserable, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go back.
You hear the phrase Romanian prison and it sounds tough. So it was what you would imagine.
It is, and when this process is over, there's a lot more I will say, but I will say the staff were very nice to me, and I want to make this clear. I want to make it very clear that all the staff in the jail were very professional and very nice to me. I would almost say that they believed I was innocent and they understood that I didn't belong there. There was a semi-apologetic vibe to the way I was treated by the guards, if that makes sense.
Yes.
They understood very well. I don't think anybody, like I said, with a functioning brain believes that me at the age of 35 decided to steal TikTok money and ruin my entire life without financial motivation to girls who say they're not victims of anything. I don't think anybody with a brain.
Well, the fact that you're not.
Well, I think one of the most unfortunate aspects of this situation is the fact that, and I don't know who the Romanian government really did this to themselves, but it's the destruction of the reputation of the country of Romania. Because don't make no mistake about this, part of the reason why all the Romanian people are on the side of Andrew Tate is because you're talking about a country that is way more socially conservative than the rest of the West. You know, it's an Eastern European country. So Eastern Europe, socially conservative, traditional, overwhelmingly Orthodox Christian. It's one of the most Christian countries on the planet. But part of their problem, unlike Hungary, unlike Poland, unlike the based right-wing countries, is that, to my understanding, this is what Romanians have told me, their government is basically a puppet of the European Union. They're an EU puppet, right? So the EU, to put its own, because really, we understand this call came from the top. I don't think it was just random Romanian prosecutors said, we want to go after the guy. I think it came from the top. The EU, not caring about the reputation, certainly not caring about Andrew Tate's human rights, we understand that, but also not caring about Romania, the Romanian people, or the reputation of Romania, says, you know, let's do this for us, we don't care, you're our puppet, right? And the people of Romania are going to suffer greatly for this, because, you know, who's going to want to travel there, right? Think about the amount of tourism that has been hurt with this country, right? Because Tate, when he moved there and became a big thing, I think there's probably a lot of people out there saying, okay, well, he's a rich guy who moved all his money to Romania. Maybe I want to do that, right? Because a lot of rich people, they want to get out of the US or the UK because there's too many rules, taxes, all that stuff. So they'll go to, you know, your Dubai's or Monaco or whatever. So he is actually selling Romania. And, you know, a lot of people never even heard of this country, and he's bringing a lot of attention to it. Also, a lot of people probably are thinking about bringing finance into it. That's good for business. That's good for the country. And it's all driven away now. Who's going to want to go to Romania, right? Who's even want to step foot in that country? Because who knows what's going to happen? Damaging the national reputation. The EU doesn't care. And I genuinely feel bad for the Romanian people, because I know the majority of them, they don't stand for this stuff. They're not with it. You know, they're Christian, they're conservative, all that stuff. And it's a sad situation. It really is.
Not accused of a sex crime or of violence, which I think most people don't really understand.
Yep.
And they can look it up.
Yep.
I mean, but you're not actually accused of rape,
Correct.
selling anyone,
Correct.
pimping.
Correct.
Okay. that right there raises a lot of questions.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing that's so interesting because I'm accused of using a method of human trafficking called the lover boy method. So how that would traditionally work is a man would meet a girl, become her boyfriend.
Yeah, if it's if just refresh. Okay, everyone hit refresh. I know we're having the problem all night because like I said, we're streaming off a cellular hotspot because the internet is just having a stroke. So if it bugs out, just refresh. You'll probably be back. Okay, that's what you're
Take her to another country, turn her into a prostitute, say I love you, like pimping.
Of course.
But they're saying, because all my conversations with these girls are very nice, they're saying that I use the lover boy method to convince them to do TikTok. And once again, I never made a penny from TikTok, and I have no interest in girls' TikTok's accounts, and I've never made any money from TikTok in my life.
So that raises the question. So that right there, I think, we can let people assess. I'm not, an expert on the Romanian legal code, but that's kind of not the impression that most people have. Okay?
And that's the media, who have made that the media have tried very hard to do that. And if I had to estimate, I think that the overall intention was just to throw me in a cell, use the media machine to drum up something real. I think that's what the goal was.
So, but what's and I believe that. It seems, obviously.
Yeah.
One thing, I've never been to Romania before, and one thing I'm struck by is the American presence here.
Oh, it's massive.
Fully understand that. So there are 3 NATO bases here
Yep.
now. They're bustling because of the war in Ukraine.
Yep.
One's on the Black Sea,
Yep.
right below Crimea. So this is strategically important, this country, to NATO.
Absolutely.
And so this is a lot less far away than I realized. It's much more American influence.
All right, it should be back.
Absolutely.
Do you think that played a role?
Yeah, well,
Let's see.
I think, and I don't want to get this incorrect, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd biggest U.S. embassy in the world. The U.S. embassy here looks like a prison. It's huge. They've got a huge embassy here. And even during Ceausescu, during the communism days, Romania was an ally of the West, even during communism.
Yes.
So, yes.
Ceausescu came to New York.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So Romania and America have been very good friends for a very long time. I have to be careful what I say, but it's certainly very interesting what's happened to me. The American embassy were not particularly helpful, let's put it that way. They weren't very interested in me being locked up without charge. They didn't seem very interested in getting me out.
But you're an American citizen.
Absolutely. And
so you're an American passport holder.
correct.
So I think
All
the
right,
average
back?
American
Sorry, I haven't
believes,
talked a lot
perhaps
because I'm making sure the
falsely,
tech
that
is
if you were
working.
accused of a
Are
crime
you
in a
back?
foreign country, particularly a less developed
The Matrix is attacking this stream. It's so real.
country like Romania, you go to the U.S. Embassy and someone takes an interest
Make sure
in
to
your case
refresh
just to
if
make
it's
sure
having
that
problems. Just hit refresh.
your treatment
restart
falls within,
YouTube.
accepted
Should be
standards
good.
of justice.
Yeah, they came to see me, but when I was asking them what they can actually do about all of this, they weren't particularly helpful. I don't want to peddle conspiracy theories, and I've heard a lot of information, etc. But I wouldn't say they sanctioned it. I don't know if they had to sanction it, but they weren't particularly interested in getting me out. But at least they came to see me more than once. I mean, they kind of pretended to care. The UK embassy didn't even pretend to care. The UK embassy had.
That's
the
not
UK embassy
surprising.
I really think they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
They didn't.
And you're a British subject as well?
Correct. And this is the kind of thing, and I want to say this here, that's kind of frustrating for me because Romania is my home now for 7 years, but I'm half British, half American originally. And when something like this happens to you, you have this longing for home. You kind of want to go home. When you end up in a jail in a country where, even though you've lived for a long time, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the legal system, going to court in a foreign language is far more intimidating than in your own language.
I can imagine.
You don't have a clue what's being said. You don't understand how anything works. And then you kind of have this longing for home, but I feel like my home countries hate me, and they hate me because of my message, which I believe to be a positive message. So you kind of have this strange feeling of homelessness, because it's like, well, if I go to the UK, I believe they're going to attack me the same. If I go to America, I believe they're going to attack me the same. So where do you go?
I feel the same way sometimes. I have to tell you that, as much as conservatives and, I obviously I am patriotic. I love the flag. I love the nation, all of that stuff. But sometimes there's a part of me that says, like this country, or at least, I understand it's the government, but also a large amount of people in this country despise you. They despise everything you stand for. They despise your religion, your faith, your values, just you in general, your presence. And, there's a part of it that just feels like you're an alien in your own home. You know what I mean? And I feel the same way too, a lot.
It's kind of scary.
Where do you go?
It's a good question.
Where do you go?
See.
Exactly.
How did you wind up here?
I moved to Romania. I came to visit a long time ago. Before anybody ever visited Romania, I came to visit and I genuinely fell in love with the place. It truly is a fantastic country. I love nature, as an amazing nature. It's a very safe place. It has this reputation of being dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's very safe. The people are very good. The people are very conservative traditionally. It's almost like America was 20, 30 years ago.
That's why I feel bad.
It's gorgeous. They have a bunch of nice restaurants and plenty of things to do. And I've never had a problem here in any way. Never had any issue with the law or with the other side, criminals, nothing, until this came out of nowhere. So it's been very strange.
So what is it about your message, do you think, that infuriates certain people?
Well, my message is traditional masculinity. My message is to stand up and say what you mean and mean what you say. And even going to the gym nowadays is an act of defiance, because when you have a man,
hey, there you go. Wait, we reacted the other night. Remember, MSNBC yesterday actually published that going to the gym makes you a far-right extremist. You guys can watch the show last night. We talked about it. It is real. It is real. Yep.
The degree of principle, you say no to things. And I think if I have to analyze my message and why I'm so disliked by the people who dislike me, it's not the things.
Okay, what is going? It just said it dropped to 15 viewers. Like, what? I don't even know what's happening. I turned off autoplay. Apparently, it just keeps skipping to the next stream. I don't know what's happening, guys. Okay, but just know, if you're watching right now, all right, we're having all these problems on the connection and whatnot. So if it does bug out, lag, skips to the next video, just refresh, go back in. It should be good. Okay, I don't know what else to say. It sucks. It's terrible. We're being attacked by the Matrix as we speak. So real.
I'm saying it's the fact that if you adhere to my principles and you adhere to the things I say, you end up being the kind of person who will resist certain ideas. You say no. What kind of man never says no? Name a man who never says no.
Sorry to hear that, Zach. Glad you're here. Glad you're safe. Good to see you,
men wake up and say, no, I don't think that should be done this way. No, my children will not be taught that. No.
The father's primary job.
Absolutely. So when you say to men, listen, you're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have boundaries and barriers. You're allowed to get up and become important and work hard and try hard and become the kind of man who can't be controlled, then you're seen as an enemy. And especially with the massive influence I've gained, I think they look at me and go, he's helping men resist the slave programming. We don't need him around. We need to empty their brains so we can inject the slave programming and convince men to be eunuchs, because once you're eunuched, then you're not a threat.
I think I buy that. Because your message, I'm not the world's expert on your message, but I've seen a lot of it, and it's not explicitly political, actually.
No, it's not political at all.
True.
And their original attack before this Matrix attack is they weaponized virtue, which is what they usually do. There's no genuine virtue inside of these people. They weaponize virtue. They find a virtue.
True.
And they turn it into a bullet and they shoot at you. I'm sure you know very well.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. I was a misogynist for the longest time just for saying that men should have standards. If you tell a man he can have standards in a relationship in any way, you're a misogynist.
Literally the case. Look at the Jonah Hill thing. Jonah Hill, all he said in that text message is, I have standards, right? And they were all reasonable standards. There's nothing super controlling or abusive. It was just, yeah, I mean, I want you to be modest on the internet in your presence. I don't want you to have inappropriate male friendships. I don't want you to be just being promiscuous when you're dating me. And he's not forcing her to stay. He's saying, if you want to leave, then leave, but this is my boundaries. If not, it's not going to work out. This is what I want. But yeah, if you are a man with standards that is emotionally abusive, that is controlling, that is misogynistic, and how dare you not let your girlfriend disrespect you, cheat on you, just be a completely disgusting, vile person to you and have no respect for you. And if you ask for respect, and again, we're not talking about forcing anyone to stay in the relationship, but it's just, I don't want to be in this relationship if that's the case. If you ask for respect as a man, that's emotionally abusive, apparently. So it's
actually very interesting, because
what does that mean to have standards in a relationship?
But this is the thing that's so interesting about it, because they've gendered the argument when I never did. I said as a man, you shouldn't have
I'll check it out sometime on the members spot, Mr. Easy. Thank
You
you for
also
the
shouldn't have male friends who are liars and cheaters. You shouldn't be around dishonest people, male or female.
Amen.
And they gendered it and said, he's a misogynist. He's saying that men should only act this way with women, etc. I said that men should have standards, and you should have protocols that you're prepared to accept, and you should have hard parameters. And if a woman doesn't want to adhere to those parameters, that's her decision, and it's her prerogative, but you don't have to stay with her. Why should you?
What's wrong with that?
Exactly.
Well, that's teaching men to say no. They don't want men to say no.
So are you arguing that it's better to be with a virtuous woman?
I think so. Yes, I know that's.
No, I'm serious. I mean, that seems
I
like
am
a
Tucker.
Good,
I don't want to.
that seems like good advice.
I don't want to come across as extreme.
Yeah, I don't want to be
but yes, I am.
misogynistic now.
And what's actually funny is I really believe most of the things I'm saying were accepted by absolutely everybody 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And now it's public enemy number one. And it's because of the mass influence I have. At one point, I became the most Googled man on earth. At one point. And it's a scary situation I'm in.
But if you're arguing that it's really important for a man to find a good woman, a decent woman, an honest woman, that's the truest thing that's ever been said. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's the most important thing any man can do. I mean, I can just tell you firsthand.
Oh, thank you very much.
Married 32 years, that's the most important thing. And you think saying that angered people?
Absolutely, because I'm arguing the only way to do that is via masculine excellence.
Yeah.
I'm saying in the world we live in today, it's hyper-competitive. And if you want to be the kind of man that has the choice of women to choose a good one, you need to be an excellent man. It's no longer acceptable for you to just be an average Joe or below average.
Completely true.
You have to get up and you have to work hard and you have to be smart and interesting and you have to be charismatic and make some money and be in good shape and you have to try very hard. And
Completely
unfortunately, for them, if you follow that path as a man and you become successful in those realms, you end up being the kind of person who resists enslavement. You become the kind of person who wakes up and says, no, I don't believe in that. That doesn't make sense to me.
I can't imagine a better message.
And I sometimes get into it with, you know, this quote unquote trad movement because it's not that I believe the exact same thing. I know the exact same thing to be true just because I see the world. I'm a young man. I'm involved in the very dating market that, you know, is in question here. I just know that to be true. It is hyper competitive. The internet has made, especially dating for a man, super duper competitive because you're not competing against the people in a local area. You're competing basically against the world. You know, there's all these like quote unquote high value men out there that you're in competition with. And so I look at a lot of guys who tell me, you know, like I have such a hard time getting a date. I can't get a girlfriend, all that stuff. And it's like, well, you know, if all you do is sit around, play video games, you don't have financial stability or independence, which does matter. I know people they say, oh, it's materialistic. No, it does matter, right? We're traditional, we're conservative. We believe in being the provider, so you got to provide, right? Even before marriage, I think it's important to have some degree of independence for yourself if you want to attract a woman. And beyond that, you know, there's a physical aspect of it, right? Obviously, you know, girls have always found athletic men to be attractive. Athletic men also just have more confidence. You got to do that. And just overall, you have to be a person of value and, you know, something that other people don't have, because that's the reality. It's competitive. You know, that is the dating market. It's man against man. And if you wonder why certain men are always beating you in that game, you know, that's the reason why. And I believe that. And I believe that if you do want to find ultimately what most conservatives do want, which is a virtuous traditional woman, you can't, that's very rare in today's society. Understand that. That's very rare. The 304 is much more common, right? The virtuous woman is very rare. So understand the competition for the virtuous woman, because most men deep down want that, is highly competitive. So if you yourself are not putting in all the work to allure that, then you're not going to get that. Maybe you get really lucky, you know, maybe it works out. Most of the time, you're not going to get that, right? It's just true. So I completely agree with that, and people can get mad, but I completely agree.
Than that.
If you
and
want
it's
a good
not even
society.
my personal opinion. I just know it to be true because I just know how human nature works. And I'm trying to tell people, well, you know, you can complain. Maybe it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. That's male nature. That's female nature. So what are you going to do about it? That's my take.
So then you have to argue and sit and say, do these people want a happy, functioning society, or do they want something else?
What do you think?
I think that I would never kill myself. And I also...
Just throwing that out there?
Yeah. And I also think that when you want to conquer a society, you kill the military-age males. That's what you do. That's the first thing they've ever done. They walk in and all the men have to have their throats cut. They can't perhaps do that, but they can certainly cut your balls off. And then you can't resist. And I think there's certainly a movement to ensure that there's very little resistance left inside of the number one demographic, which is required to resist oppression,
fighting age
which
men.
are military-age males.
Yep.
And they don't want those kind of people waking up with any kind of self-respect or standards, or to say, no, I don't accept this. I do not need a 9th injection. They don't want that. They want you to sit and say, I don't need it, but the news said so, so oh well.
So in the one interview that you and I...
And that's part of why, you know, I very often... I noticed that in this conservative movement, Andrew Tate's very divisive. I take a lot of heat from certain people for making content in his defense or saying he's right about this, he's right about that. Very, very polarizing subject. But my take on it as a young man is that, yeah, I mean, is he a perfect messenger? No, really no one is, but I get it. I understand the right-wing criticisms. But really, that's who he's speaking to, right? Is military-age men, fighting-age men, people like me. I'm 20 years old, right? So that's why I understand the things that he says. Very often, the criticisms I hear come from either older people who it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but also you're not in the whip of this. You don't understand what young men deal with. You don't understand the position that we're in. So yeah, he might come off as strange to you because, you know, you didn't need someone like this in your days. Or, you know, women who also likewise, like, don't understand what men go through. They're like, I don't like this, I don't like that. Well, it's like, realistically, it's not talking to you. He's not talking to you, is he? Like, obviously, if you listen and you think it's insightful of any age, fine. But I think that's primarily the target audience of his message. And that's why like I said, I don't agree with everything. You know, I'm Christian, he's Muslim. We have some differences. But that's why I generally, especially, you know, recently, understand his message and say, actually, there is a significant portion of it that is good for young men. And if you don't believe that yourself, you probably are not a young man yourself. Because very far and few between do I very often find actually young men who really sit down and say this is completely wrong. They understand the things that he's saying. Even if they don't agree with everything, they understand what he's saying. They understand what he's getting at. And that's really, I think, the problem of communication is there's a lot of people who just don't. And then that's why they hate him so much, you know?
You had a line that I've been thinking about ever since. I thought it was so interesting. I'd never thought of it before. You said that a lot of people went along with the vax.
Yep.
And that you didn't judge them because facts change. But now that we know that a lot of what we were told was wrong and some of it was a lie.
That's why they hate guys who work out.
It is a requirement of your own dignity, of your own self-respect to say so.
Completely. And people should apologize. I really do believe. And I have nothing against the people who fell for the propaganda, fell for the programming, and took the vaccine.
Yes, I agree.
Fine. But you should wake up and say, I was fooled. I've learned my lesson. I will not be fooled again. But if you were fooled by the MSM and took the injection and you continue to be fooled and you've not self-reflected and you've not realized that they lied to you the entire way and you now believe the new bunch of lies that are all over the television, then there's something wrong with you.
Or you don't care that you were lied to.
You don't care that you were lied to because I think a lot of this is actually genuinely cowardice. I think it's a very easy worldview. The life is easier if you accept the news tells the truth.
Yes.
Everything they want me to believe is true. Everything's nice and simple. Good guys, bad guys, doop-de-doop-de-doo. And if you want to actually wake up, it takes a degree of bravery because then you have to destroy your entire worldview, everything you've ever understood and everything you're told, and you have to really look at the world and go, oh, this is a mess. And that takes bravery. And once again, that's why they don't want men to be brave. They want you to sit there and go, oh, it's easier if just, you know, CNN said, so it must be true. And it's cowardice. And they're trying to instill cowardice in all of us. That's what they're trying very hard to do. And I think even just me as a person, the people who hate me, my detractors who dislike me so much, even if I say nothing, I just turn up, big, bald, strong, fast car. You know, it's just me. I'm like the enemy to them because I symbolize men who don't comply. And not don't comply in a negative law-breaking way, but don't comply if we don't agree with that or we don't see common sense in that, we're going to politely decline. And that's simply not allowed.
What's it like to have the prospect of prison hanging over you?
I think that I like to believe that this is a test from God. I like to believe that if you become the most Googled man in the world for saying that you have mental resilience, that God is going to make sure you don't have that degree of fame without testing you. I like to believe that God comes along and says, yes, I've allowed you to become the top G. We're going to see if you really are the top G.
All right, hold up. The stream is doing the same thing again. So if it kicks you out of the stream, guys, okay, if it lags out, whatever, or it cuts to another video, we're still on, okay? So just refresh. I'm sorry this keeps happening, all right?
I believe that's how the world works. It's certainly insane. Intimidating, especially knowing you're completely innocent. But I believe it's a test, and I believe it's my job to pass the test for my ancestors and for people watching over me and for God. And I think I have to do the absolute best I can possibly do in the scenario and the circumstance, regardless of whether I win or lose. I still believe I'm going to win because I've seen the case file and I've seen that no laws have been broken. But even in the very unfortunate circumstance that this matrix attack goes deep enough to throw me into a jail cell, I think I should handle it like a man. I think I should stay and finish the process, and I should walk with my head held high and suffer as much as I need to suffer to stick by my convictions and know that I'm an innocent person. And I refuse to break. I refuse to cry. I refuse to be depressed about it. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to smile regardless. And regardless of what happens to me, I want everyone to know that, one, I would never kill myself. And two, I think that as a man, there's always going to be a degree of pain and suffering in your journey. I don't think you're ever going to become a successful man or be good at being a man without pain and suffering. And there's many times in my life where something terrible happened to me, and at the time, if I could change it, I would have. But retrospectively, you kind of look back and go, you know what, that was formulative for me.
That's right.
That is what God decided I needed to become who I became. So all of the pain and all the suffering I've ever gone through in my life ended up, in the end, building me into the person I am, and I'm proud of who I am.
All right, there's a
So
stream
if
back.
God decides I need to go back to a Romanian dungeon
good.
for however many days, then all I can do is accept it and accept his plan and accept that it's going to make me a better person and
So
deal with
you
it.
see the hand of God in your life?
Absolutely. I think that he is the best of planners. And
Refresh.
like I said, if you retrospectively analyze all the times in life you wish you could have changed things,
Yes.
he knew better. And I'm going to have to accept that.
When did you conclude that?
I guess I always kind of knew. I was
All right,
atheistic
I think
for a
we're
while
back.
when I was younger. But as you get older, you start to look at the world and understand that the thing for me was actually, I guess, a scientific principle. It was Newton's law of equal and opposite force. If there is evil in the world, and I'd like to think we both agree there certainly is,
Yes.
there has to be an equal and opposite force, which is good. And I would like to think that that is God. Even the idea of God as a notion, even just as a concept, if that idea of God resists evil, then God is real. If you have two islands, you have two people, let's say a ship crashes, and you have two people who swim to two different islands, and one island they're atheists, savages, and they rip you apart, and the other island you get there and they believe in God and they believe they're not allowed to kill you. Even just their idea of God saved your life. So I think even just the concept of God in and of itself, if enough people believe and it makes them do good, then God must be true, and that's the equal and opposite force to the evil of the world. And this is how I view it. So I don't see how anybody with a conscience cannot believe in God anymore.
So I know I haven't said anything for several minutes because I was trying to get the stream to freaking work. But okay, on this front, right? I mean, we've talked about this before. We did this on the PBD podcast. Obviously, I hope that Andrew Tate comes to Christ, right? I believe he's misguided in his religious beliefs as a Christian, right? That's biblically what I believe. But I also think that, you know, I mean, we'll see where it goes, right? It ultimately is a journey. He has a past life that, you know, you could label to be very, very degenerate. I know people are coming up here and saying, well, he did the webcam thing, which was 6 years ago now. That was when it ended, right? But, you know, that is his past life. And so I think when you live as a playboy for many years and now you do turn to faith in something, right? He was an atheist for a lot of his life. I think it's a journey that takes time, and who knows where it ends, right? Who knows where it ends? Who knows what ends up being God's will on this front? But, you know, I hope to see it for sure. I definitely hope to see it. You know, so yeah, that's my take on that.
That's such a profoundly different worldview from the one that we're presented with, I think. Yeah. Do you think that's maybe the division in the West between people who see those forces at work and those who don't?
I will say, really quick on this front, I will say, though, to all the Christians who hope to sway his heart, which I want to do as well, I don't think constantly shaming him for something he did 6 years ago, he stopped doing 6 years ago, and has publicly said he would not do again, and is opposed to himself and says, like, that's my past. I don't believe that constantly bringing that up as a means to discredit him, despite the fact that it's in his 6 years ago. I mean, to me, that's a long time, because that's, you know, I'm like 20. That's a long time to me, but still, something that's in his past life that he now morally opposes. I don't understand how we think we're going to bring him to the truth by constantly just bringing him up and shaming him for that, while also being a faith that is based on the concept of repentance and redemption, you know? And people always bring this up, and I look at it and say, even if he's not personally a perfect person still, like, I think if you live a playboy lifestyle for a very long time, it's not an overnight thing you suddenly become sanctified, right? I don't believe that. I think it's a process that takes time. I don't believe that constantly discrediting everything he says because he did this thing years ago. That's like what they do with Donald Trump. It's the same exact thing, right? It's the same exact thing oh, you know, Christians can't support Donald Trump even though he advocated for all these pro-Christian policies because, well, you know, years ago he allegedly did something with a porn star. You know, it's just this attempt to constantly, I guess, discredit everyone who is trying to contribute something to the world, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it, you know, genuinely. If that's his past, then that sucks, and, you know, obviously it's a hard thing to just get out of that life instantly, and like I said, I think the faith he's put, the God he's put his faith in is misguided, but, you know, I wouldn't approach it, especially a figure like this, just constant shame and ridicule. I think, you know, I think I'm just saying, I think there's a better way to go about it, but some people will never understand. And every time I do the Tate content, they get mad and they, no, but he's a pimp. Okay, whatever, fine. And, you know, I'm glad you're sinless and, you know, obviously definitely have not fallen short of the glory of God, right? Romans, right? Okay.
I think I think the West is actually split between people who think and people who don't think at all. I think the people, there's no such thing as these two opposing worldviews. I think people believe there's worldview A and worldview B. I disagree with that. I think there's worldview A, the good guys, which are primarily people who do believe in God, do have parameters, do believe in standards, do believe in self-respect, do know how to say no. And there's worldview B, which changes day by day, based on what they're told, which means they have no real worldview at all. They just repeat. And they have no standards and they have no parameters. There's nothing you can tell them that will make them wake up and go, that's wrong, because they have no inherent morality. So you can literally, you can say bestiality is accepted and encouraged now, it's good for you. Well, off we go. And they'll just do it. So I think you have a camp of people who think, and you have a camp of people who repeat. And I don't think there's actually the opposing side to the good, I don't think function as a thinking populace at all. I think they simply repeat.
It feels like the conflict between those two groups is getting more intense.
It's certainly getting more intense, and it was interesting for me because, and I want to be an optimist, but I lost so much faith in humanity during COVID. If you would have told me how COVID would have gone down before COVID, I'd say no way. We're not that bad. You know, like I thought the people aren't that dumb. But when I experienced COVID, it's actually scary. You see how the Nazis managed to do what they did. You see how they managed to put people in concentration camps. You see it. And I had a very unique view of COVID because in the first days of COVID, when people were falling over in China and the Italian hospitals were overrun, at the height of the panic, when most people believed, because it was the very beginning, early stages, my brother and I had a very logical conversation and said, we're two military-aged men in very good physical condition. If we die of this, the world's over. If it can kill us, it's zombie apocalypse. So why are we going to live in fear? So we found the only two countries that were open, which were Sweden and Belarus. We had just been to Belarus. This is before the Ukraine war. We'd just been there. We decided to try Sweden. So for the first 3 months of COVID, during the height of lockdowns, when Florida was closed, when it was absolute...
I remember.
Yeah, when it was the craziest lockdowns globally, me and Tristan are in Sweden in absolute freedom. They had no restrictions, no...
Urek says, I like his gorilla statue. See? True. We have this big controversy, blah, blah, blah. Everyone, calm down. He has a gorilla statue. Isn't his gorilla statue sick?
No vaccine passports, no social distancing, nightclubs are full, restaurants are open.
The stream's good.
Perfectly complete normal society.
I was checking on it
Nobody
just now.
talks about this anymore. Nobody talks about, wait, Sweden never did a thing. Everything functioned perfectly fine the entire time. And they don't have it. Where's their illness of their winter of severe illness and death?
Yes.
They never had one. It's a cold country. Never had one. So we were living in Sweden, living completely normal lives, seeing the internet and seeing this insanity. And we're like, well, surely if we just put up a few videos of us partying in Sweden in nightclubs, this will wake people up. People ignored their own eyes. That's the scariest thing about everything, is that they can get to a level where, with the media machine, where people will genuinely ignore their own eyes. I don't understand how you can get people so brainwashed that they will see that the sky is blue, and then they'll watch that the sky is green, and then they'll look at it again and go, the sky's green. It's crazy to me, but COVID proves they can do that. And that's why the war is getting so intense, because the principled people are saying, how can you still believe in the things that you're saying? Here is all the logical empirical evidence that is a lie. But these people are ideologically brainwashed, and they don't want to take enough. They don't have the bravery it takes to wake up and accept that they're being lied to. So they'd rather just, to the end of time, repeat what they're told. And it becomes more and more intense as it becomes more and more ridiculous. That's so scary. As it becomes more and more ridiculous, the more intense both sides get.
Yes.
Right? So what the future holds, I'm not entirely sure. But I like to believe, even my current charges, I found solace when I was in jail, that the thinking people are looking at this going, something about this doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, it is a little bracing. I mean, when I discovered, I was sympathetic to you already. Yeah. But, a man's accused of human trafficking. It's worth finding out what he's accused of. Sure. And when I discovered that there was no actual human trafficking charge, that's not actually human trafficking. I don't care what you call it.
Yep.
You weren't even accused of buying and selling anyone.
Okay, so here we go. So let me just say it this way then. Okay, let me just say it this way. Since we want to have this big argument in live chat about Vince, how dare you say that this thing he said is true? Because that, even though everything he said is correct, he did this thing in his past, therefore you must permanently discredit him. Okay. Look, here's the thing. First of all, he's not even in the conservative movement. He's not a political figure. So there's something to that, right? I view him more so as a mainstream influencer, a mainstream celebrity, than I do a conservative commentator, okay? He's not a political commentator. He's a cultural figure, right? So in this same sense, when Tom Brady came out and said that he supported Trump back in 2016, everyone was like, we love Tom Brady. We love Tom Brady. To my knowledge, I don't think Tom Brady is Christian. I'm not sure. Who knows? I don't know. Obviously, he got divorced and stuff. He's now dating Kim Kardashian and all this thing. He's not exactly living the personal life we are so big on either. But we'll still say Tom Brady, MAGA, all that stuff. Fine, no problem. No problem, right? There are even many people in the conservative movement who are not Christian that will still, or even if, for those of us who are Christian, disagree denominationally, disagree theologically, we may think the other person's a heretic. And still, when it comes to political takes, we'll say, okay, that's fine. And that's within specifically the conservative movement, okay? So part of the reason why I say, yeah, I get it, okay? You can say the same thing a million times. I get it. Andrew Tate is not a perfect personal individual. Do you understand he is the most influential man on the internet, basically, when it comes to core internet personalities? So I'm not talking about Trump or Biden or whatever. Core internet personalities. He's the most influential person on the internet. Is it a good thing or not? Okay, is it a good thing or not that he is culturally advocating for things that we 90% agree with? Is that a good thing or not? Because if you say that's not a good thing, then I just don't think you understand how politics or culture or the culture war or any of that stuff works, okay? So that's my stance on him, and that's always been my stance on him. And that's why people act like I give him a pass. To a degree, I do give him a little bit more of a pass because he's not claiming to be a religious leader or even a political leader. He's a cultural leader, right? So he's something more akin to, say, a celebrity than he is, the pastor of your church, or even the president of your country. You see why I'm not saying, any of the stuff I disagree with is condoned by any means, but understand it matters less in the context if we're talking about a big time celebrity, right? So I want the people who always give me a hard time about this, then very next time that someone in Hollywood comes out and does something woke, okay? I'm going to come to you and say, well, don't you know, though, they had sex with this person or that person, or they had this affair or whatever. I'm going to go through the whole personal life and say, how dare you praise so-and-so Hollywood or sports athlete or whatever who stuck up? Don't you know they're promiscuous? Don't you know they fornicate? And then we'll see if the logic still applies. There's this just very particular Andrew Tate derangement syndrome that we don't apply to other people. And I think part of the reason some of you are mad at me about this is because I'm actually morally consistent about it. I view Andrew Tate as a celebrity. So in the same way that if Mark Wahlberg came out and said something cool or whatever, all right, but I think Mark Wahlberg is Christian and all that, so fine. But, if like Tom Brady or someone, they came out and said stuff that was right-wing or advocated for generally good stuff, I'd be like, wow, that's cool. That's cool. And we love to see that. when Jake Paul votes for Trump. Cool. We love to see that. Jake Paul lives the same exact lifestyle as Andrew Tate. But, so it's only this bald-headed guy, for some reason, so many right-wingers have a problem with me praising. I don't understand
the next conclusion you inevitably reach is, they don't like the guy. They don't like his views. It's fine. They're going to send him to jail for that.
Yep.
That does seem like an escalation.
Absolutely, but if they don't like your views and you're inspiring millions of people to resist slave programming, you become a threat. Like, they discuss me.
But you can't send a guy to jail because you disagree with him.
You shouldn't. But even before I went to jail, the members of parliament in the UK were talking about me and what a dangerous...
Okay, surfing cowboy, then don't vote for Trump in 24, okay? Do you support Donald Trump? Do you? Does he act in a Christian way all the time, even still to this day? Oh, he doesn't? Okay, well, then you can't support him then.
Role model I am for young boys.
See how silly that is?
So
See how
they launched this
I'm the one
initiative
who's
inside of
morally
British
consistent
schools
about
to
it.
ban me.
You
My
know?
name can't be said inside of any British school, and members of parliament were
Don't
standing
vote
up
for
in
Trump,
parliament
then.
saying Andrew Tate is dangerous.
Or really any of these politicians.
He's encouraging
You
young
can't do
boys
it.
to have misogynistic views, because I'm literally telling young men to go to the gym and to stand up for themselves and believe in themselves and believe in something. And by extension, you look at some of the sexual education books these children are being given, which I believe at age 9, I don't think a child needs to learn about anal sex or any of these things.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. So they're pushing that to the children, but I'm banned.
Well, they're also pushing weed and video games on boys.
Oh, completely. And you can listen to rap music about killing people all day long, and there's a whole, and Lil Nas, he can have sex with the devil in his music videos, that's fine. But I'm dangerous for saying go to the gym. And once I realized what was scary to me is, I said this to my brother, I said, once the parliament's discussing you, you're basically considered a national security threat at this point. You're a threat to national security at that level. And then all bets are off, right?
What about the UK? So the UK has become more authoritarian than anywhere in the Persian Gulf.
Correct.
How did that happen?
All right. Well, that was a severe miscalculation. My deepest apologies. I thought if we went back to the regular Wi-Fi, because it seemed to be working, I thought it would work. I thought we'd be fine. I thought the Wi-Fi was, stopped having a stroke, and we could get off this like shaky cellular hotspot. Turns out that was a huge mistake. Okay, so that was the severe miscalculation on my part. That was a terrible idea. It turns out. It actually made everything worse, and we were down. I planned to. I said it's gonna be down for like 30 seconds. We'll be back. That probably took several minutes. Okay, so we're just gonna stay on cellular hotspot. I don't know. My cable company has a lot to answer for. My internet company. I pay $200 a month for this service. $200 a month. And they can't even give me functioning internet half the time. They quite literally are messing with my income, right? Streaming, it's like part of the job of content creator, not to sound freaking weird like that, but it's true. So I demand reparations from Cox Cable Company, quite frankly. They on several occasions have messed with my income, okay? Because we had the stream, it was peaking at like 170 viewers, and then it keeps doing this, it keeps booting you guys out. Will drop to like 15 viewers because it ends the stream for everyone, and then everyone has to come back. It is very frustrating. My deepest apologies, okay? My sincerest apologies. I feel bad. I hate it. I want to just sit down and react to this. Part of the reason I haven't really talked for a lot of this is because I'm trying to fix the freaking stream. So I don't know. While we wait for people to pour back, lots of people didn't stick around. Yeah, as I could imagine. Stop giving money to Cox, Vince. Real. No, yeah, I know exactly. But they have an internet monopoly in my town. That's the problem. Like I don't have another place to go. I gotta just move out. I just gotta leave. Okay, freaking Alachua County and just move to Tampa or something where they have actual urban internet. I don't know what to say. Okay, I don't know what to say. I mean, so while we wait for people to pour back in, okay, let me re-emphasize the point I'm making here. All right. Part of the reason I say what I do, and I first of all, I genuinely just find him to be interesting. Okay, sorry if I was angry in that state and what I said earlier. Okay, sorry, I was really mad at the stream and people in live chat were just saying things, and then okay, fine. So let me say this in a more civilized manner. Okay, the way I see it, what are the influences of young men today? Well, it should be the church, it should be Christianity. I fully agree, but it's not. Sadly, it's not. Okay. Now, I hope that it is, right? That's part of the reason I have a cross behind me. That's part of the reason I'll bring up faith in political arguments, because I'm trying to, incorporate that as well, okay? But it's not. That's just the truth. It's not. And if Christians want that to be, then some Christian guy who's well-spoken should come along and do what Andrew Tate does. That's what you should do. I encourage that. But here's the thing. you have the most influential people on YouTube, okay? So on one side, you got the Logan Pauls of the world. The Logan Pauls, the KSIs. These people advocate for nothing useful. All they do is sit around and play video games. They sell scam crypto coins, poisonous energy drinks. They just talk about a bunch of nonsense. And then at the end of the day, when it comes to politics, they'll shill for the woke. They'll shill for feminism. They'll shill for Biden, all of that stuff. That's the primary influence of the youth. Here comes along a guy who is massively popular with teenage boys, more popular than the KSIs and the Logan Pauls of the world, who comes along and says, even if I get it, material, whatever, you don't like him for this reason or that reason. He comes along, he says, don't buy the propaganda, support Trump, be a man, be masculine, hit the gym, all this stuff. And then, okay, there's certain things on top of it you don't like, but all the other YouTubers are basically the same way. Me, as a rational person, right, I look at that and say, okay, that's good for the culture, right? That's good for the culture, because all these young men who, for so many years on YouTube, all they had was your freaking Logan Pauls. Now here's a guy who's saying the opposite of that. Here's a guy who's actually advocating, something, at least in our direction. It's not, I wouldn't even call him a political figure, but you see how that's like moving the window? You see how that works? You see how that works, right? And I believe, as a Christian personally, that God does sometimes use non-believers in his plans. I do believe that. Maybe that's a hot take or whatever, right? But I do believe that. I believe that's biblically grounded. And I can attest to that personally, because I know the very first person in my life who started getting me to ask questions about God. I was an atheist all my life. The first person to start asking questions was Ben Shapiro. Okay, it was Ben Shapiro back when I was in 10th grade or whatever. Ben Shapiro, obviously not Christian. And it was a lot of like Enlightenment philosophers like Locke, who I believe was a deist. I don't think he was a Christian. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it was a lot of the deist Enlightenment philosophers that got me to start asking the first questions and got me on my road to where I am now, right? Believing in the faith. So you can stand there and constantly, I'm not saying you can't disagree. I've said every time he does the Islam thing, I tell you why I disagree. But my honest take on it is, because I understand it's really big picture, long warfare we're fighting here. It's not, you know what I mean? And because I understand we're so backed into a corner, the way I see it is we need the help we can get, right? And it's the same thing with politics. Is Donald Trump the archetype conservative, or the archetype, especially the archetype like Christian conservative that the evangelicals thought was going to come along and be a political hero for so long? Obviously not. But, sometimes the world is funny like that, right? Sometimes you need a guy like Andrew Tate to wake people up, and then who knows what journey happens after that. You see how that works, right? And then furthermore, forget all of that. I listened to this interview, and I've thought most of this so far is genuinely insightful and interesting. So that's my take on it. All right, anyways, let's get back into actually watching this, okay? Sorry for all the freaking problems tonight.
And it's, like I said, it's very interesting because people still, the people in Camp B who don't think, a lot of them believe that the law is fair. I've had people say to me, oh yeah, what they're doing to you is garbage. Well, you need a lawyer. So yeah, I do need a lawyer, and I do have a lawyer. Thank you. But it's not that simple, unfortunately. The law is very subjective, and if they want to attack you with it, they're going to do a very good job of attacking you with it. And that's what the UK does. The UK have these laws which are extremely subjective, and they can use it as a weapon
catalyst, exactly,
to basically silence anyone they decide,
but
or
why?
hurt anyone they decide.
England is the
exactly, guys. We talk about. See, I see his audience as a means, because I'm a political person, right? That's what I do, is politics. I look at his audience. I see that's voters. That's people who might one day be on our side, one day support us. He's opening their minds. You see how that works, right? You see how that kind of, I don't think that a lot of young men out there care about the political takes I have, but they might listen to him, and now they're interested in this stuff, and it's a gateway to more people on our side. I don't see why this is such a bad thing. I don't see why I think this is my take on this is such an issue, right? Go stick with Logan Paul YouTube if that's what you want.
Habeas corpus of
it's true.
Kind of framework of liberal democracy that we thought we believed in.
Yep.
And now it's a country where people are arrested for praying.
Well,
what happened?
Good question. And there's a saying that I heard, and I don't know who said it.
Oops, my bad.
But he said that a sick country adopts laws like a dying man will try medicine. And I think that the UK is failing in real time. If you look at it in any metric, whether it's living standards, whether it's crime rate, any metric you can measure the success of a country by, it's fallen off the cliff. It's becoming more and more expensive to live there. The education system's gone down the pan. London is the stabbing capital of the world. You're not safe to leave your house. So their answer to this is just more and more and more laws. And unfortunately, as they do that, they're not even intelligent enough to actually attack the people who are doing genuinely bad to the world. They just make more and more authoritarian laws, and they end up using them to attack the people that the government doesn't like. And I ended up being one of them. And I think Europe in general has problems. If you look at France as we speak, I think it's on fire, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most of it?
True.
It is.
Yeah. So they have issues, and their answer, what's a government's solution to anything? Law. What can a government do? No matter what.
But they're not laws that are aimed at fixing the problem that's right in front of them.
No, they're laws aimed at fixing the person who's talking about the problems.
So
Why don't you get rid of the guy who tells everybody? Isn't that easier? Tucker? Why
That's
fix any of this? If we just shut him up, they won't know.
No, but that's like responding to a heat wave by breaking your thermometer.
Completely right. That's the plan.
It's insane.
Plan one is to break the thermometer. We might deal with the heat wave a bit later. But
Get air conditioning. No, let's break the thermometer.
For now, there's too many people talking about the heat wave. So let's just break that. And then later on, maybe when we have time, we'll do something about the actual issue.
It does seem like a lot of this is an effort not to talk about the real thing in Europe anyway, which is migration.
Yep.
And the UK, formerly known as England, and France have both been completely changed by people from other countries.
Yep.
And I'm sure have added good things too. I mean, I'm not, but they've changed them. And in general, they're not better countries. And like, why can't anyone admit that?
But this is what's really interesting to me about what's happening. Because we're talking.
Well, okay. Just one more time. I'm going to address this one more time, okay? So, all the conservative types who like to criticize and just throw shade and blah, 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 I don't like him. Tucker Carlson and Andrew Tate are about to have a conversation about migration and its demographic impacts on Europe, okay? That is obviously a very, even in our movement, a very controversial thing to talk about. And they're about to just both say, this is what we're going to talk about, okay? So, you know, like I said, he's not even a political person. But there's something to be said about, you know, a lot of people in the conservative movement are not willing to have this conversation. They'll even call other conservatives names if we have it. But they're having this Andrew Tate, he's not even political. He's not a political figure. And he's about to basically say stuff that's more based than a lot of people in the conservative movement. Okay, fine. But then you're going to stand around and moralize at him? I don't get it. I don't understand it, you know? So it's true. It's true. Republican Thinker sends a member chat saying, I started my political journey watching Owen Schroyer going on the streets and debating people who were protesting and had zero idea what they were there for. Thank you for the member chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, look, a lot of us got our start in this for some weird place. You know what I'm saying? Some of us, we just sat down, we watched politics. There's a lot of weird stuff. I started getting into at least the anti-feminism and anti-SJW stuff before it was politics through Leafy Is Here, like random YouTuber, you know? Like, I just wish people would understand there are gateways that young people get into this stuff sometimes. There are different messengers, and, you know, we can react to it reasonably and say, I agree with this, I disagree with this. I don't see why that's so bad.
Talking about masculinity and men who say no and men who
Up. F. Okay. All right. Chat. Are we back? I really feel like we should just end the stream and try to do this tomorrow, hoping we have better connection. I don't know. Or do this later tonight. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll let you guys decide.